do we identify the now proven, hardwired aspects of our nature on which we can certainly count and tap and speak to as we do the work of relocalization and redemocratization. And so I love to point out to people that even the scientists at Emory University in Atlanta looking at brain MRIs, they found that when people were doing these simulation games where they were either competing or cooperating, they said, oh, it's so surprising because when people are cooperating, these parts of their brains light up that are the same parts of our brains that light up when we eat chocolate. I love that. And then the scientist said, we're so surprised that cooperation is pleasant. And I just laughed out loud. How do they think we made it to 6-point-something billion? You know? It's pretty funny. So we are hardwired to experience cooperation as intensely pleasurable. We are also hardwired for empathy. At least we should. I love a recent study with rhesus monkeys. And I hope to think that our species is at least as empathetic as rhesus monkeys. Maybe even a little bit more, conceivably, but hopefully not less. And rhesus monkeys, in one experiment, one of these ones we really don't like to hear about how they did it, but it's interesting to get the results, that rhesus monkeys are willing to give up nutrition, give up food, deny themselves food for 12 days, if by doing what they need to do to get their food, it would cause harm to a fellow rhesus monkey. And read the book, Our Inner Ape, by one of these scientists. It's a beautiful book, Our Inner Ape. Also, fairness. Think about it. We evolved in intensely social, tightly knit tribes. And we understood. And I believe this is also has to be hardwired in us. I mean, we're hunter-gatherers for over 90% of our evolution. It has to be hardwired that we understand that unfairness breaks down community, and community is our survival. Strong community is our survival. And so Adam Smith, you know, the supposed godfather of greed, the one who supposedly said, we just look out for ourselves. Actually, that's the vulgarized, received adjective. He was a very deep social philosopher. And he said, to this point, about how deep that need for fairness is that we can count on, he said, the other social sentiments are in some measure optional, but he said, quote, we are in some peculiar manner tied, bound, and obliged to the observation of justice. So we understand that community depends on fairness, and our fair survival depends on it. And equally important, we couldn't have evolved to be couch potatoes, for God's sake. We couldn't have got to this point if we did not also have a deep need for efficacy, for power, for creating a community, to knowing that we count. That is what Eric Fromm refers to as this deep need to make a dent. And I think that we've got to just put at the center of our work in community that we are giving people an opportunity to have that deep need met. My daughter just got back from China, which is a whole other story, but she was in a community that had received an animal through the Heifer International charity. You probably know of them. And of course, with heifer, you have to pass on the gift, right? So that when you receive an animal, one of the first things you do with the first birth after that animal mates is you give it away. And she said, Mom, she said, what so impressed me, and I never thought about it this way before. And she said, the joy, the power that people felt by being able to be gift givers, not just receivers. And I just found that so moving. And because that is, then they are doers. They are making a dent in their community. So this need for cooperation, this natural empathy that we have, the deep need for fairness and for power in our lives, that these are the qualities then that are banished, in a sense, undercounted, decounted, don't even show up in this dominant mental map of this powerlessness. So what I see as you all are embodying, and the reason I couldn't do what I'm doing if you weren't doing what you're doing, and why I feel so moved to be here with you, is that you are birthing not just solutions to the end of oil or to global heating. By the way, I stopped calling it global warming because in the Northeast I think it sounds too benign, so I started calling it global heating. But it's just as you are birthing a new frame, a new worldview that I call living democracy, which says, yes, we can be these shabby little caricatures of ourselves if society pulls that out of us and only acknowledges that piece and gives us no place to find voice. But human beings are very complex, and we have these other hardwired needs. So the challenge then, once we understand that, we have to not just ask people to listen to their better angels, right, and not be the selfish people we really are, but to go for our spiritual selves. But we need to be restructuring our communities to bring out the best in us and keep the worst in check.